Hi, I'm Lynn Nygaard. I'm the director for the Center for Mind, Brain, and Culture, and I'm excited to be having a conversation today with Jinho Choi, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Quantitative Theory and Methods, as well as computer science, as well as the program in linguistics, right? So already we're seeing your interdisciplinary scope here in the all your affiliations. And Jinho, you do research. Your primary way you might describe your research is natural language processing
Yes, it
research.
is.
Is that
Yes, it
true?
is.
Yeah, yeah. Could so you just say a little bit about sort of how your intellectual trajectory, how you came to Emory, and then we'll talk a little bit about your research program.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm
Sure.
Jinho.
Yeah. Yes.
um, let's see. So I started doing natural language processing from the when I was doing masters at UPenn, actually. So that's back in 2003, I believe. So I took UPenn at that moment was very well known for the natural language processing. Until now, they are still very strong, and I was since I was very young, I always told my mom I will develop my own robot. That was my dream. So I will
Yeah.
specifically I actually said like I'm gonna make a robot that can talk, so it can actually do homework for me and
Yeah.
then so that was my so
That
I
was the goal.
yeah, I
Yeah.
actually vividly remember this. When I was like 7, I think.
Mhm.
So I asked my mom to like get me a talking robot, and I was in Korea at that time, and we didn't have a talking robot there. So
That's
she had to call some people like in the States and try to find some robot that talks, and it took her like 3 years to find a robot that
They're probably being developed at the time, right? Yeah.
so yeah, I guess like it's been in my gene to do this, but so when I actually went to the master, I didn't go for the natural language processing. I didn't know enough about artificial intelligence, so
Mhm.
I basically applied many schools that actually had a good artificial intelligence program, AI programs, and UPenn I actually did not know they were very well known for NLP, natural language
Mhm.
processing. So, and I immediately fell in love because I loved language, and I
Mhm.
was a foreign student, and we spoke multiple languages, right? So this
Mhm.
is a very good opportunity, and human conversation and the communication is one of the other very important area that I want to pursue too. So,
Yeah.
so I started studying natural language processing, then, and I went back to Korea for military service. All Korean people have to do, and I served as an officer for 3.5 years and
Mhm.
came back for PhD. So this time I went to University of Colorado Boulder. So
Mhm.
from the linguistic point of view, this was actually a very interesting move because some linguistic people know the East Coast is dominated by what we know as a Chomsky
Mhm.
and theory-based. A lot of syntax-based kind of work is done, and West Coast is more like a semantic-based work. So a lot of things
Yeah.
I was doing on East Coast, people were not doing it so much in the West Coast.
That's right. You've got two contrasting sort of
Exactly.
intellectual
So I
schools there. Yes.
yeah, experiencing this both world and that natural language processing, I definitely say it was the future of the it's one of the future of the AI because when baby was born, the first thing it learns, obviously it learns to perceive and all the other senses, but the first thing that we actually feel that baby is learning something is when it actually started talking,
Mhm.
right? And so everything really started with all you can express your knowledge in many different ways, but or your understanding, but language is the most natural way that people actually communicate. As of
Yeah.
now, if we are not recording any vocal parts right now, people would have very hard time to understand anything that we say.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So I kept pursuing that direction, and so I did my PhD in Colorado, University of Colorado Boulder, and I did my postdoc in University of Massachusetts Amherst. And
Mhm.
after that, I was pretty determined to be a faculty member,
Mhm.
to apply for the faculty position because I was actually very excited to raise the next generation students.
Yeah.
So at that time, when I was actually doing the PhD, AI was not as big of a hit as now. it was, we all knew that it was gonna be one of the biggest thing in
Yeah.
later on because we were in the field. Not many people. I mean, so when I graduated PhD, even that was 2012. People didn't really think about AI too much
Hmm.
back then, but now like it's everyone is just
Yes,
talking about it, right? So, so
that's right.
yeah, that's why I wanted to be a faculty member who can actually raise students who will to
Mhm.
prepare for the next generation. So I was applying many schools. Um, Emory actually was not one of my radar at the beginning
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
Emory was not known as an engineering school, and it was it's one of the top school that I always knew was not actually we and it didn't have a natural language processing program when I
Mhm.
first came. So, but when I was applying all the schools, there's one thing that I really liked about Emory is it didn't is ironically it's not the engineering part. That's the part I really liked about Emory because Emory was focusing so many humanity
Yeah.
part. So it's not just about like a science or liberal arts. It's we actually try to develop some service for the humanity, and I
Yeah.
think that part was and it was very clear to me when I first came to do the interview at Emory.
Mhm.
Everyone actually was very cared about those. So that's why I actually decided to come to Emory, and I
Yeah.
never regretted the
We're
decision.
very lucky. Yes.
Yeah.
Very lucky. So you have established natural language processing lab, research lab, and um, tell me a little bit about your research program. There's a computer science component, there's a cognitive science component, and an artificial intelligence component. And how do tell me a little bit about how those parts fit together, and what is natural language processing? And then I'll ask a little bit about some of your specific projects.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me go into since we were talking about natural language processing, it's a
Yeah.
research field. The
Yeah.
ultimate goal is to have the machine understand human language. So that's the
Hmm.
ultimate goal. And
Yeah.
once you understand, there are many other things that people can do. So such as information extraction. So if you have,
Hmm.
say, the easiest example is if you ask a question to a machine, it will answer you a question, right? So
Hmm.
that kind of question, that's what we call a question answering system. So that's a part of natural language processing,
Hmm.
which is one part of my research actually too.
Hmm.
And also the machine translation, which people use every day,
Hmm.
is also natural language processing. A lot of parts that we do recently do as a conversational AI is
Hmm.
try to develop a machine that can talk to help assist people. So this is also a field of. So there are many different fields in natural language processing.
Hmm.
Ones
Hmm.
that I just said is the very high level tasks. So these are the tasks that anybody could easily understand. But in
Hmm.
order to do that, there's lots of processing that has to be done,
That's
understand
right.
part. So my
Yeah.
research, since the PhD up to like all the way up to even now,
Hmm.
are mostly focused on this low level.
Hmm.
What we call core natural language processing (NLP),
Hmm.
meaning that we try to develop a best representation or best way of representing the language
Hmm. Hmm.
so machine can actually easily understand this.
Right.
And this
Right.
is probably the most challenging part about NLP because there's no one who understands how human understand language.
That's right.
So
That's my area of research, right? So yeah,
exactly,
yeah. I mean, it's deceptively easy, right? We're
right,
doing it what seems like effortlessly right now, but
right.
what are all those components that lead up to
So I
this
mean,
kind
it's such an
of tools?
amazing thing, right? Human brain. People don't understand how human brain, the mechanism of the human brain works. People
Hmm.
have an observation. So we
Hmm.
observed, and people have figured out many different things. This part of the brain does this and this. People have figured out through the observation. But there's not, I mean, not like mathematical proof that this thing does this.
That's right. Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
machine, we know exactly what each component does, right?
Right.
Because we
Right. Right.
built it. So, but human brain uses, you can guess through the observation, but it's not necessary. So just
Yeah.
like that is a language, also the same story. It's just, when I have a 2-year-old and 4-year-old sons,
Mhm.
and when they learn language is amazing.
Yeah.
And like my second-year-old son actually started talking English, which we didn't teach them. So
Mhm.
we talk
Where
only
did that come
Korean.
from?
He
Right.
somehow
Yeah.
picked that up from possibly TV or talking to his brother, maybe.
Hmm.
We never
Hmm.
taught him English, and he started talking English.
Yeah.
So this is and so how we can actually understand language is still unknown area. And what we are trying to do is try to mimic what human possibly are doing and try
Hmm.
to inject that mimicking to the machine so they can actually have understanding. So that's the overall general idea about natural language
Hmm.
processing. Obviously, much more
Yeah.
details to be
Yes,
included.
of course. Yeah.
But also, yeah, the story about my lab is also really interesting.
Mhm.
So when I first came to Emory, I had only one PhD student. So my main appointment is in computer science. So
Mhm.
I get most of my students are computer science students. But I do have students from QTM and also linguistics too. But
Mhm.
most of them are computer science. But I had only one PhD, and obviously there's not much. And because of that, he actually got the most care out of
I
me,
did.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Numerous, and at that time I was not even married when I first came. So numerous days of night after midnight on the lab.
Right. Right. Right.
But so what I end up doing was actually utilizing undergraduate students at that
Hmm.
time. So I traditionally I've had like about 3 to 5 undergrad students every year.
Yeah.
And during that time, yeah, and one immediate thing that I realized about Emory, Emory undergraduate education is extremely strong, and
Yes.
all our students are very talented. So this
Yeah.
is this is not even a question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does take time because
Yeah.
undergrads are not necessarily thinking in research mode.
Right.
But once they get to learn how to do research,
Hmm.
they can produce, I would say, like a first year graduate student level research
Yeah.
easily. We have many evidence. They have been publishing papers to top tier conferences and all these parts.
Hmm.
So that's how we began. And because of that, the lab was very small. There is not, the scope was actually had to be reduced. So at the beginning, what I was doing here is I set my goal when I first came to Emory. In next 10 years, I will develop a computational model that actually can have a good comprehension of human dialogue.
Hmm.
So this was the also interesting part about my research. I've never done dialogue research before
Yeah.
I came to Emory. So
This
obviously
is a
there was
new area.
this is a completely new area. It's not
Right.
something
Right.
that I did. And I actually intentionally blocked to do what I used to do before I came to Emory. So for the first 2 years, I actually intentionally did not do the research that I did when I was doing during the PhD,
Hmm.
because I wanted to explore this new area. And obviously, I can easily write papers more easily by doing what I used to do,
Yeah.
but I wanted to go through that learning curve and to be able to innovative mind for the
Right.
other research. So it was hard for the first 2 years, and but with my wonderful students, we were establishing certain parts. So
Hmm.
basically, we the question answering system that I was talking about, also
Hmm.
like reading comprehension kind of models. So just like when you do SAT or like TOEFL
Hmm.
or this test, GRE, you have a reading questions and also the questions here. And so
Hmm.
we try to challenge the machine if the machine can actually answer these questions too.
Right.
And this all this kind of model, some easier models are like sentiment analysis, these kind of models. The harder ones that I used to do, which I still do, is actually parsing. So
Right.
given the language, you try to make a graph out of language. So
Right.
and how you build a graph is by the representation that we develop. So
Right.
this is the
Right.
representation I was talking about, and this is a
Hmm.
very complicated part. But anyway, so that those are the research that I started, and later, since 3 years ago, I started getting much more PhD. So now I have 5 PhD students, and like 3 masters and 5 undergrad students in my lab.
Hmm.
So the lab has grown.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so now we were able to do some more larger scale research.
Hmm.
So my previous students were all excellent and great, but they were just doing pulling off the research by themselves. So we
Right.
couldn't connect their research together to make something greater. But
Hmm.
now we have more than 10 people in the lab that we can
Right.
actually develop something that can be actually practical to the society.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to participate into the Alexa Prize last year. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
And
we
so you all received the Alexa Prize, right? Is this for Emora?
Emora, yes.
Yeah, Emora. Okay. And would you, I mean, if you would describe this as a social bot, yes?
Mhm.
Yeah. I,
Yes.
from what I understand, right? So tell me a little bit about this system or this bot, if you will.
Right. So this is the Alexa Prize
Mm-hmm.
Social Bot Grand Challenge. That's the official title.
Mm-hmm.
So last year, Emory actually has been participating in since the very first competition. So
Mm-hmm.
last year was the third competition, and we are actually doing it again this year. So this is the
Mm-hmm.
fourth competition. And Emory, yeah, Emory has. I was not the faculty advisor for the first two.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Eugene Time was, and based on his great foundation that he was building, we were trying
Yeah.
to build something on top of it.
Yeah.
So the grand challenge is you're supposed to develop a conversational AI model, a dialogue
Mm-hmm.
system that can talk to any random people for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And
it
this
needs to be
sounds easy,
it needs
right?
to be interesting.
But
So
it's not, right?
this
Yeah,
is
this is really,
it
really
goes through
difficult.
the ecosystem. So the Amazon has this Amazon ecosystem, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
there are not many people who have patience to talk to the machine,
Yeah.
the echo machine for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's one of the criteria.
Hmm.
And another criteria is out of five, you need to have the star of four. So
Hmm.
on average. So and so what's distinguished from these bots in Alexa Prize from some other things, most of the conversation AI research have been dedicated to some like the assistant kind of way.
Hmm.
So if people ask you to like just like in all your phone, I think
Yeah.
every phone has a voice assistant now, right?
Yeah.
So iPhone
Hmm.
has a Siri and some other ones, but people what they use the most is really the command.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
set the alarm in 10 minutes or like
Yeah.
yeah, appointment or this kind of stuff. So this
A
is not
really
really,
limited kind of
yeah,
interchange. Yes. Yeah.
it's not really conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the most advanced one that I saw from the Google I/O actually a couple of years
Hmm.
ago, they were able to build a model that could make a hair appointment. So, so they actually did a live demo. So they call
Yeah.
like a shop, and they
Yeah.
actually the model, the robot was able to fool the other person for like 2 minutes and be able to
Right.
make a hair appointment.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
but this is still not conversation. It's you're
Yeah.
doing a very specific task.
Yeah.
But this Alexa Prize challenge is you're trying to develop a social bot that can just occasionally just talk to you like just like we are talking now, or
Yeah.
like at the end of the day when you come home, you don't want to possibly don't want to talk about work, right? You just want to
Right.
talk about something fun, or
Right.
you're
Right.
like depressed that you just need to talk to somebody. So this is kind of the social bot aspect that we want.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
And at the moment, it's completely voice based. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no visual part or
Mm-hmm.
not no non-textual part. It's a vocal audio conversation. So so Emory did participate for the first 2 years, and we had actually great foundation. So
Yeah.
what they actually did very well was the search. And as a matter of fact, that's what most people were doing before we entered the competition. And even last year, that's what most people were doing too. So if say like if it's somebody say, let's talk about sports,
Mm-hmm.
or like let's talk about movie. Movie is an easy example.
Yeah.
Then the bot asks, hey, what's your favorite movie?
Mm.
And say, I like Avengers.
Right.
And
Right.
you actually says that Avengers is directed by somebody, and it's basically reading the first paragraph of the
Right.
movie. It's just so, and it was actually okay for the first 2 years
Mm-hmm.
because people it was not off topic. is still talking something relevant.
Right. Right.
So all the way that people have done in the first 2 years really were started making it talking something relevant, not
Mhm.
conversation,
Yeah.
and mostly search based. And our previous bot was also based on that kind of foundation.
Mhm.
So that we I just did not like the idea is because
Mhm.
it's and so we actually had to make a hard decisions because we
Mhm.
had team members from the previous team and we had new team members, and
Mhm.
obviously we had a good foundation while we give up what we already have
Uh-huh.
and try to put. But basically the decision I made it last year was there was no way we could win this competition by doing what we were doing.
Right.
That was the
Right.
decision that we made. So even if so we could possibly be top three,
Mhm.
but I just didn't see that we are going to win the competition.
Right.
So we tossed out pretty much the entire thing from the previous and start from the scratch.
Right.
And so what we focus the most is two things. One, you need to understand what the user wants. So yes, when you just say like, yeah, let's talk about movie.
Mhm.
It's not about if you talk about just random movies, they're not gonna like it, right? So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they need to understand when the user says something. You need to understand. Okay, this user actually likes some romantic movie, and possibly like this kind of characters. So this kind of thing you can catch, right? But once you catch this information, you can apply to talk about some more relevant movie about it,
Right.
but that actually doesn't get that far. So you can
Right. Right.
so
Then
you
you're
can
just listing movies,
exactly,
basically. Yeah. Yeah.
you need to understand. Okay, since this person liked this kind of stuff, this kind of fact, this is this kind of person.
Mhm.
This person has this kind of personality.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some mild personality or gentle personality is more emotional than the others. So this kind of what we call a user profiling is the is really the key, because depends on that you really want to talk in different way.
Right.
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 So you don't want
Yeah.
to. So good conversation is do not actually talk exactly the same way as everyone else to everyone. Right.
Right. Right.
So that it was the first thing, and this is what we focus really a lot. And this year, actually, we still focus a lot on this. Another part that actually got us to win last year was we tried to make Emora to start talking opinion-based talk. So there are two facts. So what I consider the previous bots do is mostly the information-based talk. It's giving
Mhm.
lots of information to
Right.
the
Right.
user. But what we wanted was we actually got rid of all the information-based ones. So Emora did not talk about any information, even including news.
Mhm.
So which was a very risky move because a lot of
Right.
people ask about news actually. So the Amazon people were actually shocked that they didn't actually know Amora didn't talk about news. Um,
Ah. Uh-huh.
so we are the only bot. It didn't talk about news at all last
Right.
year, and we won after they discovered that we did not were not talking about news. I was very very shocked. So the opinion based, Emora needs to have its own opinion about certain thing. So
Mhm.
that was actually what's distinguishing. So when you actually talk about movie, you need to be able to talk about your own opinion about the movie, the feeling you're feeling, not
Mhm.
try to just listen to. So what most boss do is, yeah, you just listen, ask. So how do you feel about that movie? Then you just say something, yeah, say, oh yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too, and that's
Yeah.
interesting, and just move
Yeah.
on.
Right.
But usually, if you want to have a long conversation, it's usually you want to hear what the other person think
Right.
about too. So that's what was missing in the previous year. So that's the one component we really emphasized. Another one that was also very interesting is we try to give Emora an experience. So if somebody said like my favorite sport is rock climbing, then you
Mhm.
go, yeah, oh yeah, I like rock climbing too. My favorite sport is like basketball. And but I like to shooting the hoops, and some humans actually get weirded out. So you are a robot, yes, you're a program. How can you play basketball, right?
Right.
But surprisingly enough, most people actually really like that. So this is the part. So this was also an internal debate in the team. Some people did not like this idea at all.
Right.
Because people are going to be weirded out, just like some people did actually. Say, how can you don't have hands, right?
Right.
But what people really expect to the social bot is talking like a real friend,
Yeah.
not like
Right.
talking like a robot. So this
So
is
the components are sort of, you're making sure that the user is a person or has a personality, right? Or not, of course they have one,
of course,
right?
but we
Right.
understand their personality. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. And
Mhm.
then the bot, right,
Mhm.
has
Its own personality and
its own
experience
personality as well.
and
So yeah.
preference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really how we won. So
Yeah.
last year, I've said this too. So I've done a few interviews about
Hmm.
this, but I've said this many times. I don't think our technology was more advanced than the other teams.
Hmm.
So the other teams are great people, and I actually have much respect to every
Right.
faculty advisor in the other teams. Some of them are like one of the top in the NLP team.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's not the technology that we actually first tries approach this problem in completely different way than
Hmm.
other people did. Two, we've made a focus not on the technology but on the human behavior.
Right. It's really,
So
really interesting.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is why I mean this center actually probably align with this pretty well, right?
Yeah, yeah. This idea that, right, that this kind of understanding human behavior might be relevant for these kinds of, right,
It definitely does.
right.
I mean, we actually proved that because so grand challenge, as I said, the average needs to be 4.0 or above. So we have not met the grand challenge. So our last year's final score was 3.8.
Hmm.
Um, Second best was the 3.2,
Ah,
and the previous year the best system was 3.2.
so you're getting close though.
We are getting close, and we were
Uh-huh.
actually very, very surprised by this big gap of the score.
Right.
Um, and I think the only explanation is that Emora actually talked differently from the others. It did
Hmm.
not talk better. So we already know there's one other bot that actually was capable of talking better than us. So it was actually Checo team. They actually put a lot. They've done this competition since the beginning also, and
Hmm.
they've been second place for the first 2 years. So they
Hmm.
have all this strong foundation and keep developing, which we
Yeah.
just couldn't beat. So
Yeah.
they were doing very well, and I think the only reason we won is Emora. People, this is what we actually tried. When people talk to Emora, I want people to feel different,
Yeah. Yeah.
not more
Yeah.
intelligent.
So
So
how do you, I mean, does your team interface with research or on human behavior, or do you use any kind of sort of other disciplinary, work to inform what it means to have a personality or or an opinion or those kinds of
right.
things? Yeah.
So yeah, this year's we actually started doing that more in
Hmm.
structured way. So
Hmm.
last year we were doing this during the competition. So
Hmm.
we basically tried these kind of things and see if the people like it or not, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
observe next few days. And so that is actually one great thing about Alexa Prize is you get user reviews, ratings,
Hmm.
not review ratings, about 500 to 600 ratings every day. Um,
Oh, that's great. So that's a great source
yeah.
of data, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
getting talked to like 500 to 600 people
Hmm.
every day, a conversation every day. So which is great.
Yeah.
So we try to put out certain thing. So let me give you one, like
Yeah.
two actually interesting examples about this.
Hmm.
Are we good on time right now? Or
Yeah, I think so.
okay.
Yeah.
so so I actually started so during the Valentine's Day, I think we were one of the first to actually put a module that can talk about Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
So on it's a Valentine's Day. What are you gonna do? Are you
Mm-hmm.
gonna take her to, like, if it's a guy, are you gonna take her to? Are you, or if it's a girl, are you expecting a guy to ask you?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, obviously, a very dangerous area is they don't have a date, so
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
want to talk about Valentine's.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
So we had a small module that handles this part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that instantaneously just boost our score up. So during that day, it was like we were getting really good score.
Right.
People
Right.
really enjoy. So this is what I'm saying. Is you these are things that people like to talk about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's what we try to do. Another interesting thing is we try to be more rigorously profile user information, not information about users' preference.
Mm-hmm.
So we started asking some questions that we should have not asked at the beginning of the conversation. So after saying like, "Hey, hello," and saying like, he says like, "Are you married?" And then,
It's a
then
little
you
fast, right?
that freaked out them. So that's all. So we were actually at the bottom, hitting to the bottom that week. We
Yeah.
just couldn't figure at the beginning, like it was not as rude as what I just
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah.
something like those kind of personal questions we tried to ask at the beginning.
Right. Just to get a sense of who the person
What
was,
kind of
right?
person
Yeah.
this is, so we can have
Yeah.
a better conversation later.
Yeah.
People freaked out. so, so here is the magic that happened though. Exact same question, we basically shifted to later.
Yeah.
At
I
the
can
beginning,
imagine.
we had
Yeah.
some casual chit chat. So, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
like this, and maybe you talk about your favorite movie and something. So you got a little more familiar with the person, and
Right.
after that, you start asking, "Oh, by the way, do you have a kid?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they were totally fine answering those
Yeah.
questions.
That's so interesting, sort of, so that there's this kind of temporal,
Exactly.
aspect to a dialogue, that where certain kind of domains of conversation are appropriate at one point, but not others. So there's this pragmatics of it, if you will, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's also these kind of things are the ones that we actually studied during the Alexa
Hmm.
Prize, and
Yeah.
eventually we figured it out at the end. We actually figured this out like 2 days before the before they closed us. So when we switched it, it was just
Uh, that's right.
the
That's
rating was better, better than what it used to be before. So
yeah.
we were
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's, an incredible an incredible amount of work, I imagine, right? But really, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
the students did
involving,
a great work. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are you most excited about in your research program right now as we kind of wind up our conversation? What's the one thing that's really sort of, or more than one? I'm sure there are many things, but is there one thing that you're particularly excited about at the
right. So yeah, as I said, like when I first came to Emory, I set my goal for the in next 10 years. I'll try
Mhm,
to develop a bot that can understand human conversation. So that
mhm,
was the goal, and now I'm actually up for a tenure right now. So
mhm.
I'm in the last semester of my assistant professor term, one
Yes.
way or the other. So
No, no problems. Yeah, no worries.
anyway, so I am actually, so I need to set a goal for the next if I do become an associate professor and for another next 5 to 6 years.
Mhm,
So now that I am heavily investigating into this conversation AI
mhm,
research, but I am most, so there are two directions of the research that I am one, obviously making it better.
mhm.
So even now, the understanding of our system is not so good. We are, so this year Alexa Prize, we are actually starting everything from scratch again.
Mhm.
because we did win last year, but we were not satisfied with our technology. So
Mhm.
we completely tossed that out and
Mhm.
started building everything from scratch again this year. So we're not afraid of doing that. So we just,
Yeah, apparently.
we've done it before, so why
Right.
not
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully this year we will be credited for that effort
Mhm.
again. But anyway, that's not the point. Is that the point is we do want to make
Right.
the model, the system that actually have a deep understanding and make a causal inference of what's
Ah,
happening.
yeah.
All this profiling is at the end is the inference, right? So
Mhm.
this is that's one. Another one that I am heavily looking at right now is domain adaptation. So there are three directions, really two directions plus one that I am pursuing for this
Mhm.
research. One is for mental health. That's actually the one part that, so people who have mental health issue, mostly a lot of college students obviously have depressions,
Yeah.
and not just college, right? It's all over, happening all
Yeah.
over. And also people with like Alzheimer's disease,
Mhm.
brain damaged, those kind of, still any mental health issue, we actually want to help them through the conversation AI.
Mhm.
So I was actually, if you asked me about this 4 years ago, I would say no. Why would they talk to machine? They should talk
Right.
to human, right?
Right.
One thing that I did know, I did little research. I'm not heavy, but little research about this. People with depression don't want to talk to other human. So
Mm.
this is a known fact, and they are just afraid of talking to human.
Yeah.
So and you bait the reason, and they want to. So that's why like people around them try to get them just talk, right? Even their
Yeah. Yeah.
parents, or it doesn't have to be a therapist or anybody, just get them talk.
Yeah.
And that part I think machine can actually help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these people may be comfortable just talking to machine because there's
Mhm.
no risk talking to machine.
Yeah.
So then the machine can encourage them. They, oh, you talk just fine. You're very healthy now. Just
Yeah.
encourage them to get out of their system and try to be a
Right.
part of the community again. So
Mhm.
that kind of the is one direction really.
Mhm.
Or people who do not have a good learning ability or to born with, this AI can actually help them to receive.
Right. Right. Do
So
some
that,
interventions in some point. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other direction is education.
Mhm.
So, and this actually brought up even more heavily during this term of the pandemic right now.
Mhm.
So even after pandemic, I think this form of the education will somewhat stay.
Mhm.
So we are, since people actually investigate a lot on developing this infrastructure to do this virtual learning,
Mhm.
I honestly do not like this online setting of teaching. I think my
Yeah.
teaching quality got reduced at least to the third,
Mm.
not just
Yes.
half, the third. Because I have, yeah, but I mean, that's another 2 hours of talk that we
Right.
can
That's
do.
right. That we'll have a whole nother conversation
So let's
about
not
that.
focus on that. But anyway, one thing. So as I said, I have two sons, and they
Mhm.
are okay. So they're 2 year and 4 year old, so they don't have to go to school,
Mhm.
and we take care of them, try to take care of them at home, and they don't need to learn math, or we're not heavy on early education anyway. So
Mhm.
they're just playing fun at
Yeah.
home. So the only part they're really missing is the friends.
Yeah.
But that we have neighbors in the friends. So, but I do see our neighbors who have like a kids in K-12, especially K-1 to 6. They're having tremendous issue. I
Yeah.
think so. The obviously even college was not really ready for this kind of setting, right? So
Mhm.
we actually had to go through at least a semester to get stabilized for everything.
Yeah.
Imagine what is happening in elementary school.
Yeah.
Their material, at least like I'm in computer science, all my materials are electronic, so I
Mhm.
didn't have to create new things so much. I can use
Right. Right. We can
like
post
PowerPoint.
PDFs or
Yeah,
PowerPoints or
you
record
already
our
have all
lectures.
that. Do you think elementary school had that? No.
Yeah.
It's-
So, yeah.
the answer is no. So they didn't have a PowerPoint to teach them.
Well, it's very disembodied. right? For little
Right.
guys, they're not able to, right? Yeah.
Right. And also another real problem is the kids do not focus.
Yeah.
So even college students, after staring at Zoom for 2 hours, what can they do?
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do. So I think the conversation AI can really help out this. They can
Hmm.
actually work out in their own schedule and try to
Mm,
have them grow together and help them being a tutor basically to help them get
right.
this going. So education is actually another part that I'm heavily thinking about. The third
Really
part,
interesting.
obviously, I do a lot of collaboration with industry, and
Hmm.
what industry want really is the customer service, right?
Yeah.
So, so I
Yeah.
think that research will be there because
Hmm.
a lot of industries are indeed asking us to develop a conversational AI chatbot for
Hmm.
their customer service replacement. So, I
Yeah. Interesting.
think,
Yeah. It's just been such a, pleasure getting a chance to sit down and talk to you about your research and the next, sort of the next phase, which I know we'll be excited. We'll be talking with you each way, hopefully each step along the way. And I really appreciate you taking your time and
thank you
coming
very
on another
much.
Zoom call for this, right? Yeah. So thank you so much, Jinho.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and this has
Uh-huh.
been such a fun time.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.